Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
The Celtics did what they were supposed to do. Luka Doncic faces a best of 3 with the Clippers, and Malik Neighbors is a shaky fit for the New York Giants. Game off, we got to talk about Monopoly Go, this fast-paced game that lets you team up with friends for tournaments to unlock awesome prizes like unique stickers for trading, cool playing pieces, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends. So download Monopoly Go now, free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
For Celtics fans and maybe even the Celtics players, coaches, and organization, the Miami Heat were like a villain in a horror movie. They were not going to be safe until they had the house dropped on them and the house was lit on fire and you were just really sure it was over. Well, on Wednesday night, the Celtics dropped the house on them. They lit it on fire, a 118-84 beatdown to vanquish the zombie Miami Heat. No more zombies, at least not this year. John Corrales in the arena from Locked On Celtics. John, no Kristaps Porzingis, no problem. This seemed like the statement that Boston needed to make here.
Yeah, Jason Tatum after the game, I asked him specifically about, is there some sort of like feeling of satisfaction of dismissing Miami? And I asked all the guys that, and Jason was actually honest about it. It's like, yeah, we have so much history. Like we knew, I just knew we were going to play them. I knew we were going to have to play them. It's like a rite of passage that you have to, no matter what, Jimmy Butler, no Jimmy Butler, we knew Miami was struggling anyway. But especially after game 2, people were so worked up about, oh, here we go again. Here's another Caleb Martin turning into Ray Allen series. And it turns out that one game was an aberration. The Celtics gave up 23 three-pointers in that game. They didn't give up 23 three-pointers the rest of the series after that. So they needed to, regardless, it could have, like you could have been me and you in Miami Heat uniforms. They just needed to beat the snot out of a bunch of guys wearing Heat uniforms just to kind of exercise that demon.
I guarantee you they would have beat the snot out of us wearing Miami Heat uniforms. Though I would have gotten some shots up. I know that.
We would have jacked some threes. We would have been more willing to shoot than Miami was.
That is for sure. You mentioned the no Jimmy Butler part of this. But the Celtics, it's not like we needed a tensile test for the Celtics. We know they've been a really good team all season long. If you're going to play, the cynical side of this, and Boston media would never do that. I know that they would never play the cynical side of anything, but you might go, hey, I'd like to see this team have a full Heat team to beat so that they have a better test going into what could be some tough tests coming.
You play who's in front of you, and no one's going to remember, right? Like in a few years, if the Celtics win this championship, in a few years, people are going to be like, yeah, okay, they won in 2024, and that's the extent of it. No one really talks about those playoff runs unless you want to have like drunk bar discussion, which is fine. Some people will do that.
Yeah, I do.
You beat Miami, and is this the weakest title run ever? Like that, whatever. Who cares? It's a title run, and be done with it. If we're counting the Lakers bubble championship, then we're counting all of them. So. I think the Celtics are fine. I personally would rather see them, let's get Orlando a win in game 6, force a game 7, get them 6 days to kind of get themselves right, rest whatever injuries might be there. Al Horford can rest up a little bit. And then you take on that next team. You're going to have to deal with it without Porzingis for at least one more series, probably. So might as well be as fresh as possible. So Jimmy Butler, no Jimmy Butler, that's fine for the narratives, which we all like. We're the writers and talkers, and we love narratives.
Yeah, we're the
Celtics love to win, and they will take the wins against whomever it is against.
Yeah, you mentioned Kristaps Porzingis or no. For some reason, the soleus muscle has become the main character of the NBA playoffs. I'm not quite sure how that happened, but what is the concern level with Kristaps Porzingis, not just from his health standpoint, but from this team standpoint without him?
I think the Celtics got a little bit lucky the way that the playoffs have broken. So you can face Cleveland and Orlando in the second round without Porzingis, and think they'd still be favored in all of those games. So that's a pretty good matchup for them, even without Porzingis. So the level of concern drops a little bit. You hear the reporting that it's going to be at least this next series, but there is some optimism that he could be back for the conference finals. And if that's against New York or let's say Philly or whichever one of these remaining teams, having Porzingis is going to be a matchup problem that you would like to have rather than, try to game plan without, because he is such a difference maker. The Celtics defense is significantly better with him on the floor than without. And you want to have that kind of rim protector. The Celtics guards are great at running teams off the three. And if you have that combination of Porzingis back there and forcing teams into mid-range shots, the way the Boston offense runs, you get a lot of why they were able to blow out, not just beat Miami, but blow them out, because Boston can hit threes and they will eventually hit a bunch. And if they're winning the math battle, that makes these wins a little bit easier.
Stay up to date on the Boston Celtics all year by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Celtics on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Coming up, Luka Doncic began a best-of-3 run against the Clippers. Before we get to that, things are looking a little rough out in Colorado. I have a wager for you over at FanDuel, and you're going to want to pay attention to this one. Of course, if you're a new user, you can get $150 in bonus bets no matter what, but you're going to want to hear this. In the NBA playoffs, the Pacers are looking to put away the Bucks tonight. No Giannis or Dame time again for Milwaukee, in all likelihood, means good things for the Pacers. FanDuel has Indiana as 8-point favorites, and only one of these games has been closer than that. I think this is a spot where you should take the Pacers and lay the 8 points. Is this an emotional hedge? Maybe. You can also check out all the lines on the rest of the NBA and NHL playoffs, whether they be money lines or who will win, point spreads, puck lines. FanDuel has it all. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook for myriad reasons, but chief among them is how they treat new users. Start using FanDuel today and you can get $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. Just head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon for $150 in bonus bets, whether your first bet wins or loses. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook and the official sportsbook of Locked On. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed to you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Buffalo's quarterback and son of Deion Sanders, Shedeur Sanders, had some things to say in response to a former Colorado player criticizing Coach Prime's regime. As our Locked On Buffs host Kevin Borba points out, this paints an even bigger target on Colorado's back.
Shedeur Sanders may have just made arguably one of his first mistakes at Colorado, and I think it was one that was very much avoidable. It was one that wasn't necessary, and it is one that I think has put a bigger target on Colorado's back. Now, I don't want to act like Colorado already doesn't have a target on their back. I think they are probably the most disliked team in college football in the sense that people want to see them fail. People want to see them fall on their face. People want to see them struggle. That's just how it is. They don't like Coach Prime. They don't like his flashiness. They don't like his methods, whether you agree with them or not. We can all agree that there are a lot more fans that are concentrated on a Colorado team that went 4-8 than there are on a program like, say, I don't know. You could throw like Texas A&M. You could argue that Colorado is going to draw much more criticism this next season than Texas A&M is, or Miami. If Colorado struggles, if Miami struggles and Colorado struggles, I do think more people will be talking about Colorado struggling.
In other college football news, people are talking about the possibility of a collective bargaining agreement in the sport. Seriously, the possibility of revenue sharing with college athletes continues to grow. With this, some bowl leaders are already hoping for a collective bargaining agreement, with the players that would help significantly lower the number of postseason opt-outs. The executive director of bowl season, Nick Caparelli, said that his understanding from speaking with conference commissioners and NCAA president Charlie Baker is that name, image, and likeness collectives are destined to be brought in-house, and there have been discussions about contracts in exchange for NIL payments. The wheel of NIL continues to turn. The Minnesota Twins have won 10 games in a row.
Jeffers digs in. Brebbia wipes his brow. He looks stressed. Flop sweat dripping down his face. He pitches. Oh, it's a meatball down the middle. Jeffers hammers a frozen rope to right field. Oh, he's admiring it. Folks, he just did the discount double check celebration. He is feeling it right now. White Sox have been demoralized. 2-run score. Jeffers holds up the 1 and the 0 as he rounds first base, sort of like Anthony Edwards the other night. I think he's saying, this one's over. We've won 10 straight. He's calling the fight. Jeffers delivers. In the words of Dolly Parton, our new score is 9-5. What a way to make a living.
The Yankees finally got a win over the Orioles.
Played really well, pitched really well. Luis Gil, that the fastball that we were concerned about the Orioles being the third best fastball hitting team in baseball didn't seem to look like that today. Those numbers certainly went down after today. He looked unbelievable. He really, I loved the, I guess for lack of a better word, obsession with the fastball that he had today. Mm-hmm. Like he went into the game with a lot of confidence. He knew that the fastball was a great pitch. He went into it with almost a Roger Clemens 90s attitude of like, hit it. Go ahead. I dare you. Hit it.
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
I guess the better way to put it is Mariano. Here's my cutter. This is the only pitch I'm going to throw. Hit it. I dare you. And that's what he said. And those are the pitchers with that level of confidence that have the most success. And he showed that today. I mean, he showed, here's my fastball. Come and hit it against the third best fastball hitting team in baseball. And they couldn't hit it.
Luka Doncic put himself in a best-of-3 scenario with the Los Angeles Clippers. Our Locked On Mavericks host Nick Angstad looks at how it started.
There's a segment of fans that at least comment on YouTube and say, "You're so gutless. Why would you? Why are you not talking about Jason Kidd and saying how bad he's been this series and talk about why he's the reason why are you scared? Are you scared of Jason? Are you scared of this?" If you're doing that now, you were not here like a month ago when I said he should be fired and let go from the team. So you're new here. So for those of you that are in that camp, and for those of you that are also in the camp of why do you always blame Jason Kidd for everything that happens to this team? It's not all his fault, blah, blah, blah. I'm gonna throw you guys a bone here for a second. I think he's right. I think Jason Kidd is right in the sense that he has made a calculated decision for the Mavericks and the Mavericks defense specifically to sell out on those Clippers threes, and especially James Harden's threes late, and to allow him to take some of those floaters. Now, the Mavericks defense didn't execute very well at the end of game 4, and that's one of the reasons why they lost. Many reasons, but I think the main reason why they lost is the Clippers hit 18 threes. They shot 62% from 3, and they have hit 18 threes in both of their wins in the series so far. And there's only been 5 teams this season, or 5 games when a team has hit 18 or more threes in the playoffs so far. The Clippers twice, Milwaukee in one of their wins, Boston in one of their wins, Miami in their one win against Boston.
So hitting teams that many shots is
teams are 5-0 when they hit 18 or more threes. Teams are also 16-0 when they hit 14 or more threes, including the Mavericks win that they got, I think, in game 2. And so I think Jason Kidd is right to sell out on these threes because it's such a big swing part of this series.
Absolutely. I mean, the very basis of this is the math of it, right? Just the three being an outsized scoring potential, and knowing that this is one of the better 3-point shooting teams in this league. I'm absolutely with you there, especially when you consider the ways in which, man, James Harden himself is kind of a swing vote. If you were going to take an electoral bent on this, I don't know why I did, but I did. This is where we are.
It's 2 days in a row. This podcast has made it a political analogy, and we never do that.
That's right. You're welcome. But no, I mean, you know that someone like Norm Powell, high level 3-point shooter, both in percentage and volume. Paul George knocks down a lot of shots at high volume, right? James Harden ends up being one of those guys where this could go one way or the other. And when he's knocking down shots, it almost feels like a death knell. So I absolutely understand the idea of playing high on him. What made it tough, though, was like they were hunting Luka Doncic, and then Luka then had a limited mobility when you talk about a myriad of things the short turnaround, clearly the injury, the fouls, right? All those things put him in a place where it made it a lot more difficult for him to execute. But it did seem like, and I'm with you there, I think the game plan there of trying to stop the threes mattered a lot more, especially when you look at the idea of, okay, well, James Harden getting into the paint isn't any better, twos, threes, but also if he's getting into the paint. And as you've mentioned before, they were not scoring at the rim. The Clippers have not scored at the rim particularly well all series. And you were forcing him in kind of that mid-range area to put up floaters. Floaters, mind you, that he had only shot something like 21% or at less than 30% on during the course of the season. Problem was you just got a crazy high percentage of knocking down those floaters in this game, and that one put you out at the end. So it made the decision, although the process I think was pretty good, as you have mentioned there, it put you in a place where it ended up looking bad.
Yeah, I just think that it's the key to the Clippers. If you try to think about it from the Clippers side of things, how do they come up with wins? So far, they've hit 18 threes in both of their wins, and they won both of those games. They hit 10 threes, 10 of 29, which is 35%. Not like awful, but not good.
Yeah.
10 of 29 in that loss. And then they hit 8 of 30, which is just terrible, 26%. They're not going to shoot that bad again. But 8 of 30 in that game. So you literally, so far, if you're just going to go off of these 4 games, you hold them to 10 threes or less, the Mavericks win. If you hold them, or if they hit 18 or more or whatever, anywhere close to that, the Clippers win. That's their way to win. They are the Mavericks from like 4 months ago.
Stay up to date all year on the Dallas Mavericks by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Mavericks on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, Malik Neighbors, why he's not a great fit for the Giants. We've all been there, either as a fan or a player. It's halftime and the scoreboard's not looking good. You're feeling low, not sure you or your team can pull out a win. That's when you dig deep, lift your head up, and say to yourself, time to get back in the game, pull off some bank heists, and take as much of my friend's money as I possibly can. That's right, the smash hit mobile game Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's the Monopoly you love, but on your phone anytime, with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddy. There's so much to do. Play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards. Make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball. Charge other players rent for your iconic properties. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests and in tournaments to get extra rewards and climb the leaderboard. So get back out there, put on your game face, and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play. Giants showed confidence in Daniel Jones by drafting him a wide receiver. As Locked On NFL host Tyler Rowland points out, Neighbors isn't exactly a good fit for the Giants offense.
I think Malik Neighbors is a shaky fit with the Giants. They have guys who work. If you go watch the tape of Malik Neighbors, he did his best work in the slot. Okay. And I think it may take him a little bit of time, and he's a younger guy. He needs to get stronger, learn how to deal with press coverage, all that. It may take him some time to grow into a dominant outside receiver. So I think he's going to have more of an impact on the inside. And I think a guy like Wendell Robinson is a slot only receiver. Jalen Hyatt can be like a Z receiver on the outside with a little bit of room, but Jalen Hyatt does good work out of the slot as well. I think Hyatt is not as good of a player as Malik Neighbors, not even close, but they're similar in their style with their speed and how they're going to play. So I think that the Giants needed a dominant X receiver like a Marvin Harrison Jr., like a Rome Odunze. And I think that putting a guy like Malik Neighbors, who has some off-field concerns, in New York City, I mean, I just think that's a shaky fit for the Giants, even if he is talented enough to be the number 6 pick.
If Malik Neighbors doesn't fit your offense, you change your offense. That's where I am on that. But it does make sense to me that Rome Odunze was the better fit in New York. You have all of these slot receiver types, Jalen Hyatt and Wandale Robinson, and all of these guys who are quick and dynamic and vertical. That is where Malik Neighbors also shines. It is a little duplicative. Now, to say Jalen Hyatt, a 3rd round pick, and Malik Neighbors, a top 10 pick, like, you wouldn't say, I'm not going to draft Malik Neighbors because you have Jalen Hyatt. But given how close in quality Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, and Rome Odunze were, then you can start getting into these fit discussions. And you can go, actually, what you need, what this offense demands, is a X receiver on the backside who can just one-on-one win on 3rd and 6. That's what Rome Odunze can do. And that's where it makes Daniel Jones' life so much easier. Now, so does a run after the catch Terminator who can take a slant for 50 anytime he touches the ball. But when you have Daniel Jones, is that really the perfect match? Now, is Daniel Jones going to be the quarterback for that much longer? He might not even be the coach or the quarterback this year. That might be Drew Lock. In which case, sign me up for Malik Neighbors because he wants to launch that pill. I can understand the argument, though, that Rome Odunze is less duplicative than the players they have currently on their roster. I also just thought he was the better player. But Malik Neighbors is awesome, and I think he's going to be an awesome New York Giant. I can't worry about any of those other guys. I can't worry about the quarterback. None of those players are foundational pieces. Malik Neighbors can be one. And finally, the NBA's last 2-minute report strikes again, this time in the playoffs. Tyrese Maxey's heroic shot for the Sixers shouldn't have happened. The league said the game's refereeing crew missed a Maxey travel on his three-pointer with 25.4 seconds to go, which he was fouled by Knicks center Mitchell Robinson and made the free throw. I guess it's all good, Knicks fans. Oh, what's that? The Sixers will keep the win? Oh, well, no, that's pretty worthless, I guess. Cool. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Coming up on the next Locked On Sports Today, can the shorthanded Bucks force a Game 7? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.